Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. I am Simply G, and today I'm going to be doing my third quarterly wrap-up for MangaHoarder's 2019 reading challenge. If you're not familiar with this challenge, this is one that Laura from MangaHoarder puts out every single year. This is the first time I am personally participating, and it's a list of 52 separate little topics or goals, I guess, to read within the year. So the challenge itself can be done over the entirety of the year. There's also some bonuses as well, which are a little bit more difficult. And yeah, so it encourages me, and I'm sure a lot of people who are participating in reading a lot of different types of manga, stepping outside of our comfort zone and just diversifying a little bit. There are some things here which I think in this final quarter coming up, I'm going to have to actively try and read because I don't read them very often. Things like isekai and mecha as well. So we'll see how I do with the actual challenge. But today I do have some that I have completed and wanting to share my thoughts on that. So the first is actually number one, a battle manga. And this is a series that is very, very near and dear to my heart. It's a little bit unconventional, and although it is quite popular within a certain, I guess, cult following, it's not really one that a lot of people know. And this is Dorohedoro by Q Hayashida. This is a very hyper violent, hyper gruesome, hyper just off the wall bizarre series about sorcerers and sort of devils and just plain old normal people who are in an active fight or war between each. And our main character, Kaiman, has the head of a reptile and doesn't have any memories from before he woke up with a reptile head. And so the story itself is him trying to find out who did this to him, who he actually is, where he comes from. And then his friend is this girl here who runs a gyoza shop, and they're sort of like a buddy pair system. We also see a lot of the different sorcerers who are part of the story, and each of them is very, very interesting, very creative. And I've said it before with this manga when talking about it in my hauls, but this series is one that is although it is incredibly violent, incredibly gruesome and gory, Hayashida was actually a assistant for Berserk's Miura, so obviously within that kind of type of manga. But she manages to write her characters in a really interesting way. There's a real sense of domesticity between a lot of the characters that would otherwise just be pretty two-dimensional bad guys. It's really likable in how she writes all of her characters, and there's a lot of shades of grey and dimension to each of them. So yes, I chose this for battle manga. This volume in particular, it's the final volume for those who don't follow this series. It's 23 volumes in length, but it does actually have sort of the final fight within this story. It is the finale, so even more so than usual, we do have a lot of action, a lot of battle between the two sides. It's not the same sort of battle manga in the sense of a Naruto or even a Yu Yu Hakusho, but I do think that it qualifies as a battle manga because that is a large part of this conflict, and fighting and violence is definitely a large part of this series. And yes, if you are a fan of more hyper-violent series, things like Berserk, as I said, things like Battle Royale, and you don't mind a more fantastical setting, I would highly, highly encourage you to try this series, especially now that it is complete by Viz. You can buy all 23 volumes, and it is a wild ride. Really, really happy to have finally finished this series, and it's going to be a difficult one to try and like replace within my ongoing reading, because there really isn't anything quite like it. Next is number 7, a martial arts manga, and this is one that I read digitally. I will put it on the screen now, and this is F-Ken. I'm not sure if it has a longer title, but this is a one-shot manga. It is available on the Shonen Jump app, and it is about kendo, which is a martial art. It's a little bit of an unconventional martial art, but it is definitely a martial art. And I don't like to be very negative about the manga that I don't like to read a lot of manga that I dislike, first and foremost. So a lot of the times the manga that I do talk about is in a very positive sense, but this is probably, it was only a one-shot, but this is probably the worst thing I've read in a long time. Oh my goodness. So what this one-shot is, the premise is that it's a kendo club at a high school, and they get a new female manager, and she, through the power of understanding each of the team's fetishes, uses that to increase their kendo power and make these like normal guys who are in this club just absolute monsters of not just kendo, kendo people, but just in general, and using her understanding of the human psyche to not only play mind games on the other team, but the members within their team, and just, as I said, using fetishes to increase their kendo power. It is so bad. Oh my god. It is only 25-ish pages long, and it was, oh god. As I said, I don't like to be super duper negative about a lot of the stuff that I read, just because I don't feel negatively about what I read. I definitely can criticize stuff that I enjoy or that I have been reading, but on this channel I tend to talk about things that I enjoy more so than I dislike. But F-Ken was terrible, and if it wasn't a one-shot, I don't know if I could, there's no way I would be reading more than one chapter of it, for one. But I don't even know what you could do to that series to make it more than a one-shot. Not that I'm expecting the author to have had that goal in mind, but I don't know. It was just really, really, it just did not sit with me well. And just reading it was excruciating, but I had already started it, and it was only a one-shot, so it was like, it's only 20-something pages. How bad can it be? Little did I know. But if you're morbidly curious, or if you're like, that sounds really up my alley, I love this idea, it is on the Shonen Jump Reader app. You can read it for free, or I think it's free. On Shonen Jump, or if you have the $2.99 or $1.99, whatever it is, subscription, it'll be there. And it's not a huge time sink, but it definitely for me felt like a waste of time. Really one that I do not recommend, and highly encourage you to avoid if you are someone who has a similar taste to mine. But it may be some people's more so their speed. They might find it funny. I really did not. Next is number 17, which is a manga featuring manga. And this I had to choose because it is wonderful, and it is definitely a manga featuring manga. Skullface bookseller Honda-san, which is a sort of autobiographical manga written by Honda of their life as a bookseller, in Japan, and they work within the American comics section of this bookstore, but that they are sort of grouped within the manga section overall, and a lot of their co-workers work in manga, and there's a lot of reference to various series, everything from Berserk to Chihaya to The Heart of Thomas to Kitaro to everything. There's huge diversity of titles mentioned in this, and if you are a manga fan and if you've read a lot of manga, I definitely think this series will make you smile if you haven't tried it. It's just fun to read about all of the quirky characters that come into a bookstore and the sort of things that they're reading and the struggles of being a bookseller, especially in Japan, especially in the manga section, with regards to foreign buyers, but also just difficult buyers in general, or intimidating buyers they don't really expect, as well as just the relationship that bookstores have with publishers and advertisers and things like that. It's very, very fun. Very, very highly recommended from myself. It is only 4 volumes long. We have only gotten the first volume so far, and it is being put out by Yen Press. It's just such a... As I said, if you're a fan of manga, I would highly encourage you to try this series out. Also try out the actual show. It made a short episode series a couple seasons back, which was just really fun and funny, and Honda is just really relatable in a lot of senses. So yes, Skullface bookseller Honda-san is my choice for a manga about manga or featuring manga, and this is most certainly one that I can recommend and have enjoyed and sure to enjoy the rest of it, because yes, it's just really good. Next is number 39, a manga with a one-word title, and so I decided to choose Stravaganza. It does have a subtitle, The Queen in the Iron Mask, and this is by Akihito Tomi, but the actual title is Stravaganza. So this is, I've spoken about this series in my pickups video maybe 2 months ago now. This is a release by Udon, and it's a 2-in-1 omnibus release of this 7-volume series. The main reason I picked it up and why I was interested was not only because I do enjoy a series with badass lady fighters, and I will always try something when you have a cool woman with a sword, but also because it's a Harta manga, or it was running in the Harta magazine, and I just, for some reason, I think that a lot of their series are really, really stuff I enjoy. Some of my favorite series come from them, all of Karamori's stuff, the works of Akiire, as well as Delicious in Dungeon, which is really, really fun and wonderful. So I wanted to pick it up, and I said this in my actual pickups video, but this is a complicated series for me. There's definitely, in my opinion, a reason why this is a 2-in-1 release, because I don't think a lot of people would have picked up the second volume just on its own if it was in singles, because the first volume is like, it has really weird tonal shifts and there's some strong ideas there, but it feels like the mangaka just really didn't know what he wanted this series to be. But the second volume, we really do get the introduction of a more put together plot, and a very strong one. I do think that this series has a lot of unnecessary fan service. I've said this before, but like, fan service, if the story is good enough, I don't have an issue with it. I don't really hate or love it. It's just something that is there, and I will never take away anyone's enjoyment of fan service, but I do think that there's a lot of superfluous fan service in this series that's just kind of weirdly, it just clashes with the overall tone of the series, which is just makes me like actually dislike it a lot. There's a pervert old man character in this, which is the worst of it, but there's also like the queen. She's going out to address the town or the city, and everyone's there, and she trips on her dress and just like falls entirely out of her dress, so she's completely naked aside from her helmet in front of everyone. Like, that's just really unnecessary, and I don't find it funny. I don't know if a lot of people do find that type of thing funny, but I don't know. As I said, not for me with that sort of fan service. But you can definitely see there's a lot of good in this series as well. I do like, as I said, the second volume introduces some really good plot lines, some really great characters. I really like all of the diverse women within this, insofar as like how they look, how they act, and they're all very capable, which is really nice as well. I also said this, but it is, although maybe not intentional, our queen in the Iron Mask is very, very interested in her female associates. So if she is not loving ladies, I would be surprised. But as I said, I don't necessarily think that's intentional for the mangaka. It's a curious one. It's one that I can't readily encourage people to try, just because it's not one that I really actively love, and I do think that it's probably the weakest of Harta's manga that I've read so far. But as I said, it is very good at what it tries to do when it knows what it wants to do, right? So, but it is very muddled in the first half of this particular book, and then very strong in the second half, aside from that old man pervert character who shows up again. So it's only going to be 3 volumes. I'm still not sure whether I'm going to pick up the second one, but I will say that I am actively interested in how the story goes. So, there's that. But Stravaganza is a curious one, and I think one that for general manga readers may have flown under the surface, just because it's not... Udon isn't a huge publisher, first and foremost, but also it doesn't have the buzz around it like something like Rose of Versailles, which is also coming out from Udon, or a lot of, it doesn't have an anime, so people don't necessarily know about it through that. And it just seems like a series that is kind of just middle of the road. People don't love it. People don't hate it. It's just okay. And I find a lot of those series do tend to slip through the cracks of more general readers of manga. So if anything that I said sounds interesting, maybe check it out. I do, as I said, like this character trope, I guess, of this warrior queen. And I like all of her attendants and her right-hand woman. And I do like this sort of fantasy setting, sort of. Like, it's a very low fantasy setting. And I do enjoy sort of the main themes of the story currently, but just not super keen on the fan service, and also like some of the treatment of our main character from like some of her guards and stuff. It's just a little bit uncomfortable. And like, that's not okay, that's fine, whatever. So Stravaganza, bit of a mixed bag, but it's my choice for a manga with a one-word title. Finally, for my reading challenge, things that I've done, is number 48, an award winner, and my choice was Beastars by Haru Itagaki. This is a very popular and much talked about new shonen series. Itagaki has won a couple awards for this series. It is very popular in Japan as well. And if you're not familiar with it, this is set in a universe or a world where everyone is a anthropomorphic animal. So sort of a Zootopia-esque setting. It's set in a high school, and there is a large, like kind of again in Zootopia, there's a big disconnect or separation between carnivores and herbivores, and so very obvious metaphor for class or racial division. And so our main character, Lugosi, he is a large grey wolf, and there's been a horrible murder of an alpaca, I believe, who was a very popular kid at school. He was going to be the head of the main character, the star of the play. And Lugosi is also in the drama club. He was quite good friends with this other character, but he is sort of put under suspicion because he is obviously a very large carnivore, and the herbivores are quite wary of what's gone on. There's suggestion that it has to be another student or somebody at the school who's done it, because there's really no other individuals who'd have access to the school late at night. It is a boarding school, I should mention, so that's why people think that. And so it's not only about sort of preconceptions and bigotry and that sort of thing, but we also have this mystery, this murder mystery, as well as Lugosi and all of his relationships with other people, including, although it is only just introduced in this particular volume, from my understanding, it is a larger part of the series, his potential friendship or relationship with Haru, who is a little rabbit, so sort of like the complete opposite to him, but in temperament and personality they are very similar, if not exactly the same. We also have the actual politics within the drama club and how things are going to go now that their main star has died, and what's going to happen there, and a lot of suspicion and just things like that. It's very, very good. I look forward to the second volume, and this is quite a few volumes along. It's like 16 or 17 volumes already in Japan. Very, 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 very good. I know people jokingly refer to this as the furry manga, and hey, maybe it is. Anthropomorphic animal anything sort of gets slapped with the furry label, which is, I mean, that's fair enough. But you can definitely enjoy this either way. Like, I don't think like with any anthropomorphic character, I don't think it's inherently just for furries or anything. But yeah, really strong start. Really intriguing. It has only generated, from my understanding, very positive buzz from the Japanese side. So I look forward to reading more. And yeah. So that was all of the challenges or the topics that I was able to hit for this third quarter of the year. Not too many more in the list, thankfully. I was very lucky I could get a lot of them done very early in the year, so I'm sort of just picking up the slack for all the bits and bobs still left over. But let me know your thoughts on any of these titles. Let me know what you've been reading this last couple months. And as always, thank you, Laura, so much for such a wonderful challenge. It definitely encourages me to read a lot more than I normally would. And it's never too late to start if you are wanting to try this particular reading challenge. We'll link it in the description below. And keep an eye out for next year's as well if it sounds interesting and you want to start, at the beginning of the year. But thank you everyone so much for watching. My social media will also be in the description as always, as well as my Book Depository affiliate link, which I use pretty much all the time for my manga purchases. If you are outside of the US like myself, it is probably the best option to buying manga But yes, I'm on Twitter pretty regularly. I'm on Instagram, not as much, but I am there on occasion. And if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you... No, I'm not going to...